Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Studio 78 podcast. I am your host, Nache from NacheSnow.com. Welcome. Remember, you can find the show notes for this page over at NacheSnow.com/146. And we mention a lot of things in this episode, a lot of software. So you will probably want to go over there after we chat. Oh my goodness. All right, you guys. This is being released right at the end of January 2022. Insane. So I hope your year has been going good so far. I have another episode that will help you get organized and figure out what to do next in your business. And we're going to talk about a couple of things on this episode. We're focusing on virtual assistants. The first half of the episode is more on how you figure out tasks to provide a virtual assistant, how to find and choose one, different types of test projects you can get, how to prepare your business for it, and the average hourly wage for a VA, and why a contract is so important. And then the other half of the episode, we get into Chynna and why she decided to teach people how to become a virtual assistant. And it's really fascinating. I love her story and her journey. She's even been a VA for one of my favorite artists, Jenna Rainey. So I just love hearing her journey about how she started, why she quit her job, and then why she now is an educator in teaching other people how to make money becoming a VA. So we do a little bit of everything in this episode. And of course, the show notes and on YouTube. I also have timestamps because you may want to come back to this episode just to hear what she has to say about the different things when it comes to either getting or becoming a virtual assistant. And I love at the very end, I ask her tips that she's learned from becoming a VA, like what works in a business and what businesses need to keep in mind in order to be organized and be effective. And so she provides like her top 3 tips for that. So all kind of goodness in this episode, my friends. All right. So few housekeeping things. Definitely, if you're looking to get organized, you can also stop by the shop arm of my biz, which is dreamsplansideas.com. I have all kind of goodness over there, from digital planners to the Life Cleanse journal. So definitely check that out. And if you love this episode, remember sharing is caring, my friends. If you're listening on Apple, please rate me 5 stars. I greatly appreciate it. If you're on YouTube, please give me a thumbs up. And wherever you're listening, if you can subscribe, I would greatly appreciate that too. All right, folks, let's just dive on in, my friends. Hello, Chynna. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
This is very, very timely. I've probably already said in the intro that I'm really excited to have you on the podcast because people need to hear this and get inspired. But also, people might also want to start their own VA business. So I just can't wait to dig into all the things. But before I do that, can you just tell the listeners a little bit about you and your background?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started my VA business in 2017. I found out, well, let me back up. So I had dabbled in side hustle projects before. I had joined MLMs, I had started blogs, I had done all of the things to try to make money on the side of my day job, which I loved, but none of them I really committed to. And then finally in 2017, my now husband found out he was being laid off. And I had that simultaneously happen with my 9 to 5 going through a I'll call it a very professional argument with me about about my value and the fact that I wasn't being compensated, frankly, for the work that I was doing. So I was working with them and having this ongoing conversation about trying to get a raise. So I took all of these kind of like life experiences that were happening as my catalyst to be like, okay, I need to find something that is going to make me money today because my husband makes the majority of our money.
Mm,
I
mm.
can't get my day job that I do really, really enjoy to pay me what I'm worth. So I need to like actually make this happen. And that's when I found the virtual assistant world and I dove in head first. I decided that this is what I was doing and I went all in. So, with that being said, I took a few courses. I read everything I could possibly find on the internet about it. And 6 months later, without having planned to do so, I quit my job because I had so
Mm.
much virtual assistant work that I didn't really need to do it anymore. And fast forward over the following few years, I grew a team of, at one time, 3 subcontractors. So we worked with all types of creative business owners, coaches, makers, artists, pretty much everything you can imagine with everything on the back end operations of their business. And then eventually nowadays, I help other people that want to start their own virtual assistants do so. And I provide educational resources in order to do that. So, yeah, I think that's
Mm.
everything. Yeah.
You mentioned you had dabbled in other like side businesses or businesses before. So what was the delta? I think a lot of my listeners, they've tried to do businesses, some kind of succeeded, some didn't. But normally once a business does hit, usually maybe someone did a little something different to help it stick. So I'm curious, what that was for you. Can you identify it? Because I know it's kind of hard, but
Yeah, I would say it's a twofold thing. So one was because of the situation I was in that I was like really, really needing money, frankly,
Mm,
because my husband was being laid off. I knew that I could make money really quickly, where a lot of businesses, there's that startup period and investments that you make, and it just takes a long period of time to make money. And I knew that even if it was a small amount, which it was at first, even if it was a small amount, I knew I could make enough and quickly enough to actually help my family at the time with the challenges that we had. And it was learning about what virtual assistants actually do and finding that I had a really natural knack for it and that I
mm.
really enjoyed it because I am that type of person. And I know that there are going to be creatives listening in that are like, wow, this woman is crazy. But I live for spreadsheets. I live for color coding anything that I can organize and make beautiful is so in an organized way is something that I can just like completely nerd out on. And I built my services around things that I could do that basically all day long and do it for people that hated doing it. So it
Mm.
was a combination of the two things that I was like, wow, this is actually something that I can really, really be successful at, but also be really passionate about.
And how was it getting those first few clients? Was it friends and family? Was it cold calls? I mean, what did you do?
Yeah, I went all in on Facebook groups. Facebook groups are an incredible way for business owners to connect with one another. And a lot of times they go there whenever they're looking for support and looking to hire. And it's really common for a lot of virtual assistants to hang out in those Facebook groups for the same reasons. And I just hung out in there, provided value and suggestions and just help for people. Whenever they had a question about a service that I provided about how to organize that spreadsheet or how to, post something on Pinterest, I always answered and I was just genuinely helpful. And whenever I saw job postings come up in the Facebook groups, I responded to them. And I did that. And I did it enough times that I found my first few clients. And from there, it transitioned into referrals from those initial clients. But Facebook groups are incredible for both finding clients and just generating connection.
Mm. And it's interesting too because you mentioned, I believe, a little bit ago in the beginning, like you took courses and you did YouTube and all of that good stuff. And we've had conversations on the podcast before about investing in yourself. So do you feel investing in those courses? I don't know if you did any coaching programs through the years were worthwhile, because some people are like, I should just YouTube it, and other people are like, well, you can do both. So what's your take on that?
I think that finding quick solutions is great for free content like on YouTube and the Google machine, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that like if you need a quick tutorial down and dirty to solve your problem kind of thing, I think that you can get a really long way with all of the incredible content that people are creating nowadays. But I think if you have one major goal in mind, finding a person that has been there and done that and investing in that to learn from that person, you can absolutely catapult your progress by working with someone who can just straight up give you the solution instead of you spending so much time looking for the solution. And that can pay you back in dividends with the investment that you've made. So I always had a happy medium of both because I do believe that, and I know that's grazing over your question, but I've always found so much value in Googling things and solving problems. But whenever it came down to, hey, I have this one big goal for the year, for the quarter, for the whatever, and I know that I need to make this happen and I don't know how to make it happen, I haven't made that investment and I've always seen a return from it.
So I'm going to pivot a little bit and just talk about what VAs can provide, because so a lot of creative entrepreneurs listen to the podcast. Some are 9-to-5ers with a side hustle and some are full time. I think both can benefit from a VA, but if you've never had a VA, it's like, well, what do they do and why do I need them? So I'm wondering if you could just break that down. What would a small or large business, but in particular small businesses, how would they utilize a VA? Can you break down some of the services and how VAs are helpful?
Yeah, so virtual assistants are kind of the equivalent of your administrative assistant in a traditional kind of office setting. So I always like to give that comparison because it's always the thing that most of us understand because it's a lot more familiar. But generally, anything that is administrative at a desk is something that a virtual assistant can take over for you if it's done on a computer. Now, if you're an artist and you paint, like obviously your virtual assistant isn't going to paint for you, right? But you probably facilitate a lot of emails back and forth with your commission clients. If you're a wedding photographer, you have to send those contracts and send proposals in order to confirm clients. If you create graphics to post on your Instagram account to share your artwork or to share new projects that you're working on, all of those things are done from a computer or from a mobile device. And all of those things are things that virtual assistants can do for you. Just to kind of paint the picture for you, I have a list of 50 very basic tasks that virtual assistants can do for you and on my blog, and that doesn't even scratch the surface of what they can do. And I find that it's so underestimated how much they actually can do. So I don't know if you want to dive more down the route of like specifics and what your audience would find most helpful though.
Yeah, I think so, because I recently talked that I want to find a VA to assist with things, and I'm looking at my tasks now to figure out what those things are. I think some of the things that are most useful to me is doing the research, for example, for my newsletter, because I have all these newsletter ideas, but
Yeah.
I'm the type of person that I like to dig into the research, but that takes forever.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's one of those things that I would use a VA for. But I think people have a hard time figuring out like what type of tasks VAs do and when they can use them, because I know some people use them in order to create systems for themselves, and people are like, well, what is that? What is systems? Like, how would they create systems for me. So yeah, anything that you could provide that would help people understand what they could use a VA for and maybe kind of think through how they work so they can then find the right VA.
Yeah. So, what I always recommend to every business owner that has ever come to me and said, because this is generally what I hear, I don't know what I need, but I need help. Like that's because
Right.
that's what it basically boils down to. And what I always recommend is going back to work as you exist right now and as you're functioning right now and track everything you do. And I know this sounds extremely tedious, but track everything you do for 1 week or 2 weeks if you're feeling really adventurous. And then go through every task that you completed on your own and say to yourself, first of all, do I need to do this? Or is it something that I can teach someone how to do? And two, is it something that I can do from a computer remotely? So that is usually going to paint a very clear picture for you and your business of what you can outsource to a VA, because outsourcing to a VA can, I was just saying, it can be 100 different things, but
Mm-hmm.
customizing it to your business, I think is really important, and dedicating that like week's worth of time to saying, what do I actually do with my time, first of all, and second of all, what do I not have to do myself? And that will put together a list of tasks that you're ready to outsource to a VA.
Yeah, I love that because I mentioned newsletter. My blog goes hand in hand. When I look at it, I'm like, the reason I'm not, it's not for the lack of ideas, it's the lack of time in order to like research that ideas and then draft that content. And so when I go through the things I'm procrastinating on, it's like,
Yep.
what can you pay
Yep.
someone to help you with? And you mentioned social media and all of that other good stuff. So someone might say, okay, I know the task I shouldn't do or don't want to do, but how do I even find the right VA? I think that's like another mystery, right? Like maybe you can ask someone, but if no one in your circle has found a good VA, people feel a little lost. And some people go in some of the Facebook groups and can find people and ask like, hey, do you have a VA? But I think that's hard too. Even for me, as I'm looking for a VA, I've put it out there. Some people have emailed me and I'm looking through people's websites, but it's hard because you're like, ooh. So yeah, any
Mhm.
tips on finding and choosing a VA would be great.
I know you kind of touched on this already, but I do recommend, if you have people in your network, in your business network that works with a VA or might work with a VA, I definitely recommend reaching out to them first, because that word of mouth referral, just we all know it goes a long, long way. So I would for sure just check with all of your business besties and see if anyone has a VA and start there. If you don't have that convenience, I would for sure put together a really clear job role that you're anticipating. So take that week adventure that we just talked about and put together a list of tasks and go in the Facebook groups and look at previous posts from other virtual assistants. Cause I know some people like don't want to post their position because they're like, I don't want 150 people to look through. But you can compare your kind of list of things that you need with other people's lists of things that they need and find people in the comments or in the responses of that job post that might be a really good fit for you. And it really from there, it really comes down to finding someone that you connect with. Because
Hmm.
in my experience, so many business owners look for the task rabbit who already knows all of their platforms. And I've worked with Dubsado and ConvertKit. And if you don't know any of these, that's okay. But if you work with like all of my platforms, then you're my perfect person. But the reality is anything that you're handing off to a VA is something that you can teach someone how to do, even if they're not familiar with that specific platform or process that you have. So whenever you interview, because inevitably you will, whenever you interview those 2 or 3 people that you found through your research in Facebook groups, online, word of mouth, whatever, really just see if they vibe with you and see
Hmm.
if you feel like you can trust them and feel like they understand the mission and the goal that you have behind your business and the work that you do. And then say, okay, well, you don't have as much experience, but I really feel like you are the person for my business. And then just be willing to give them that extra time to teach them how you want things done. And it won't matter because you'll be that much more confident in the person that you chose to work with. So that's, and if you find that wonderful person that knows every platform and that you
like, good on you.
like good on you. And it happens. Trust me, it happens. But if you don't find that, don't feel discouraged and know that what you're doing in hiring not that person, but someone that you connect with is more important.
And as you were talking, it just reminded me some tips I've heard over the years and even in some recent books where you can, before you fully hire them on, maybe pay them in order to do a few tasks to make sure that you guys work well together before you commit, right?
Yeah. So you as a business owner could give your new potential VA a test project before you even start working with them. This is very standard in the industry of saying, since one of your tasks is going to be creating Instagram graphics, I would love for you to create 5 for me just so I can see like what your style is. Does your design skill match the skills that I need? And that's a really great way to figure that out. And also a trial period, like you were saying, of giving someone 30 days to join your team and learn your processes and really get a feel for what it is to work together. And for whatever reason, if it doesn't work out, then neither one of you are obligated.
Yeah. And I know, and I'm not sure like what clients in the past have done for you, but I've heard when you're teaching someone something new, ConvertKit, like you mentioned, Dipsado, Flowdesk, whatever, and you're having people help you with whatever system to like videotape yourself doing the task in order to let them see your workflow. Did you have any other tips that you could pass on to help that what we can do to help a VA learn our business so they could quickly get up to speed?
Yeah. Preparing your business before you hire a virtual assistant is really important because that's what you were just talking about is a huge step in doing so, because that week-long process where you figure out what you're going to outsource, then you have this list of things that you want to outsource. And then you have to say, okay, I need to create the lingo that we use is SOPs, and that stands for standard operating procedure. And that is basically a document or a video. You can write it out step by step in like a Google Doc or something similar, or you can film yourself and do a screencast of you kind of talking through it and fulfilling the task yourself. But you put all of that together for each one of those tasks that you know that you're going to hand off. And then as soon as you find your VA, all you have to do, and this is a beautiful onboarding process for a VA. Your VA is going to love you if you do this. But if you have all of that prepared for them and you say, hey, I need 15 Instagram graphics created every month. Here's the SOP, or here's my video training. Go watch it. If you have any questions after you watch it, let me know. But chances are that's going to get them through the entire thing. And they're going to immediately be able to support you. And you're going to immediately feel that support too, because you're not going to go through this. How do you want it done? How many do you need done? When do you need them by? Because it's all going to be outlined there for them and ready to go.
Another thing I think people struggle with is how much should I pay my VA? And do we need to sign a contract? So any thoughts on those two areas?
Yes. So first of all, you absolutely need to sign a contract. I could talk about this until I'm blue in the face, and I will not bore you or your listeners. But there needs to be something in writing for both parties that everyone knows what is expected, what the policies are, if it doesn't work out, what you can basically expect from one another. Because at the end of the day, it's a business partnership. And I truly, truly, truly believe in the power of just like having a written agreement in place, no matter how much you trust the person, no matter how wonderful they are to work with. you are protecting yourself and your business, and they are doing the same by having a contract. And I will leave it there.
And do VAs normally provide the contract, or does the business?
I've seen it both ways. Most VAs will provide their own contract, but a lot of business owners, and you certainly don't have to do this if the virtual assistant has their contract. You don't have to necessarily have one, in my personal opinion. But as the business owner hiring a VA, you could also put into place a independent contractor agreement. And I am not a lawyer. This is not legal advice by any means, but that is very standard as well, to have one both ways, if not just from the VA to the business owner.
Yeah. And then pricing, right? I mean, because, oh my goodness, of course, it depends on the level of experience. It depends on the type of task that you're having them do. But I think that's another barrier where people are like, well, what is the going rate and what should I be looking for? And I don't even know.
Yeah. So the challenge with this is that because virtual assistants are technically self-employed, they're independent contractors, they work for themselves, they set their own rates. So it does tend to really range. And I see why the confusion comes up for business owners whenever, especially when they hire their first few VAs or support team members. Oh, what do I even do? Like, everyone gave me a different price and I don't know what I should pay. So generally, for a experienced VA who has worked with several clients, understands the process of working remotely, has a proven track record, but doesn't necessarily specialize in any certain area. So there are virtual assistants that technically they're a virtual assistant, but they won't call themselves a virtual assistant. It's like that. And a lot of us, I'm sure, have heard of it. It's like, I focus on Pinterest, so I'm a Pinterest manager, or I'm a social media manager because I only focus on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. So those are more specialized virtual assistants. So they're going to have a higher rate. But if you need that person to just take over the everyday tasks, I would anticipate you to be spending anywhere from $25 to $35 an hour US. That is your everyday, come in, work for me for 10 hours a week and help me manage my business kind of virtual assistant. Whenever you get up on that higher end of those specialized people, you can anticipate more anywhere in the $40 to $60 range, depending on how their services are structured and what they're exactly providing for you.
And then last question before I move on to where your business has now gone is another question I think people have is, well, how do I know how much time to pay for every week? Should it be 10 hours? Should it be 20 hours? I think that people just don't know, especially if they've never had a VA, like what should they commit to, and they're signing like a contract and everything. So
Yeah. I would say to commit to whatever you are financially able to commit to long term, because it's a lot easier to grow with your VA than it is to be like, wait a minute, hold on, I don't need 40 hours a month, so let's just do 20. That's a lot more difficult than saying to your VA, you're doing an awesome job, and I just realized that I need so much more help, and you should probably work for me for 40 instead of 20.
Right.
So I always err on the side of caution whenever it comes to this, and I always tell people to, I don't want to say aim low, but go lower than you think that you need to. But this also comes back to that kind of figuring out your tasks on your own. How long did it take you in that kind of week adventure that you went on tracking your tasks? How long did it actually take you to send your inquiry response emails, if that's something that you plan to hand off to your VA? How long did it take you to draft that blog post on your website? And that is going to be really comparable to the amount of hours that you hire a VA for. So you can look at it from that direction, but from the VA side, a lot of VAs won't work with you for too little of amount of hours, because it kind of becomes this, well, I can't have 30 different clients for 2 hours a week because you wouldn't get anything done, right?
Right.
So I would say aim for a minimum of 5 hours a week. And then if you're not really sure, just plan to incrementally grow with your VA after that whenever you get a better feel for things, because that's going to give them enough time that they can really focus on you for that 5 hours a week and give you the support that they need. But you're also not going to be sitting there and being like, what do I do with 5 hours a week? Because any business owner, I think, can find 5 hours worth of things to do.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, back to your story.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, I need to make some money, right? Like, I got to figure it out. And it's funny because one podcaster calls it the baby effect, regardless of if there's a baby or not. But their whole point is an event happens in your life and it forces you to be like, I need to make this business happen.
Mm-hmm.
And for you, you went all in and you made the business happen, right? You had I'm assuming, a thriving VA business. So what made you start to educate and become more of an educator and teaching other people how to start becoming a VA?
Yeah. So, like I mentioned, whenever I talked about me getting into the VA space, I didn't really intend on making this my full-time gig at all, ever. Like, I never planned to work with clients full-time. I just wanted to make enough money to like get my husband through his layoff and like maybe pay my student loan payment. Like, that would have been awesome to me. But whenever I realized that I could match my daytime salary with what I was making as a virtual assistant and then eventually surpass that, I realized how much freedom it gave me, because not only do I have the power now to control my time and control the amount of money that I make and control how much vacation I take, and all of these beautiful things kind of blossomed after I realized that, one, I needed to quit my job because I was working too much. And two, like, having made that transition, I learned very quickly how wonderful of a decision it was to do so without necessarily even planning on doing that. I say that because it was very shortly after I quit my job that I started having friends, I started having family, I started having strangers on the internet say to me, hey, I saw that you did this thing and you started this business and I don't really understand what it is, but can you tell me about it? Because that sounds really awesome. The fact that you wake up and work with people that you're really excited about and you get to support them in their businesses. And because I talk about all this stuff all the time, but I had all these people contacting me and I was like, I can't not help other people do this. Like, I can't not share the wealth, like not meaning like in a kind of emotional and like lifestyle freedom kind of way. I can't keep this industry under wraps, because it really is under wraps. Like, I still don't think that my mom understands what I do for a living. And like, so people don't really know about it. So that's what led me, like the combination of me finding the lifestyle freedom that I really craved whenever I was in my 9 to 5, and people very clearly just asking me how to do it. I realized that it's something that I need to share and it's something that I need to help other people with. And that's whenever I decided that I need to shift my business into doing so.
Nice. Okay, so now what does that look like? Do you run a program? So let's say if I'm like, Chynna, this VA business sounds pretty cool. What are you offering? How do I do this?
Yeah, I have a signature program. It's called the Virtual Assistant Blueprint. And it is basically, if you've never heard of a virtual assistant before my conversation with you today, it will take you from ground zero to how to work with clients on a day-to-day basis and everything in between. The contract that I, again, could talk until I'm blue in the face about, how to create a proposal, how to send invoices, how to create your packages, how to figure out what to charge, like all of these questions that a lot of newbie virtual assistants have. It walks you through that from top to bottom. And there's a support element from me through a Facebook group as well, that if you have any like big challenges or obstacles that you're working to overcome, I also help our students that way as well. But that's really the one main thing that I focus on now.
No, that is really cool. Helping women or men, I guess, start their
Yeah,
own business and get that freedom and being able to, like you say, control your time. I'm just
absolutely.
curious, what type of folks normally join the program? Because I feel like people are like, oh my God, I gotta be like type A, really super organized. I mean, you have in mind, like, I'm only gonna be good at this if. So, what would
Yeah,
you say to
yeah.
folks out there about that?
The beauty of virtual assistants is that you can really customize it to you and what you're good at and what you enjoy. And chances are there will be a business owner who needs you. And so if you are that extremely creative visual person who would rather watch HGTV home decor TV shows than like Game of Thrones. Like you can create logos for people, you can create brands for people, you can design websites and like really get into that kind of creative brain. But if you're like me, that you just want to play around and color code things and track data and get really nerdy, or like bookkeeping is another great example of if you are a very not if you're a numbers person. I'm not a numbers person, but if you're a numbers person, you can build your business around that. So I guess to answer your question, it is really a wide variation of people that join the course and that get into virtual assistants. I think it's more about not necessarily what you're offering or what you consider your skills to be, but it's more about what you desire in your work. Because I find that so many people come into the VA world because they want that lifestyle freedom. They want to be able to travel. They want to be able to drop their kids off at school in the morning and not have to have their mom come over for the hour that they have to leave earlier so that they can be at the office or whatever it is. Like that's more important to them than what it is that they're actually going to do on a day-to-day basis. That kind of comes later and we like work through that in the afterthought. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And as we get to some of the wrap up questions, of
Yeah.
course, you being a VA for several awesome businesses before, and then also teaching people how to be a VA, and they're talking to you about what they're doing in other people's businesses. How can we be better in our businesses? As a VA, you see the underbelly, right? Of like how businesses operate. And so, as far as organization or anything, like from what you've seen through the years or heard from other VAs, are there any tips you could give people that you're like, hey, if you're not doing this, you should start doing this?
Wow, that is an incredible question. And I'm so happy you asked because I feel like I have so much to say about this. So, three things came to mind as you were talking. One is using some sort of project management system. And these are things like Asana or Trello, or ClickUp is like the new kid on the block in terms of project management systems. All of them are great. It doesn't matter which one you use, but it gives you this beautiful organized place for you to put everything that is in your brain on a well organized kind of project layout and gives you to-do lists and everything else. I find so many, especially creative business owners, who like just keep everything on post-it notes and to-do lists and in their brain and in their phone and everything else. But having that is one centralized place that you know that it's there. It's in Asana. You know that you don't have to think about it anymore because your reminder will be there whenever it's time to do it. So that's for sure number one. I don't see enough people utilize them, and I don't even know how people function without them. Second of all is just setting up documented systems for recurring tasks in your business. So these are those things like how to send an inquiry response email. I know I've kind of mentioned these things earlier, but it's really those video screencasts, like you mentioned, of how do you do this thing that we do on a very regular basis. I do this every day, every week, every month, every quarter. All of those things need to have some sort of documentation behind them, because if, God forbid, something happened that you couldn't work or your VA quits, you need to have something to hand off to the next person so that they can take over that. And I find so many businesses organized without that, and that they really don't have a backup system in case something goes wrong, and that's your backup system. And the last piece of this is so many, and again, specifically creative business owners. I worked with, that's who I specialized in working with. So I have so much to say to your audience about this. Please, if you use a CRM platform, a client relationships management platform, like a Dubsado or a Honeybook or a 17 Hats, please take the time and set up the workflows that system gives you, because it's really confusing, I know, and it takes a lot of time, but the 8 hours, it might not even take you that long depending on your business and how your process works with your clients or your customers. But taking one day and building out an automated workflow will save you days of your life. And I'm not even exaggerating. It will save you days of your life in the future. And you pay for it already. If you have Dubsado or you have 17 Hats or any of these systems, you're paying to save days of your life, and you're not. So I would for sure recommend that even if you don't implement it yourself, you hire someone. There's virtual assistants that specialize in these workflow developments, and you can have that person, if you don't want to do it yourself or don't have time to do it, to build that out for you. And imagine a world where you don't even have to send an inquiry email anymore. All you have to do is just see the discovery call bookings come through your inbox, and you just have to be there, and the proposal will automatically send itself. Once you see it happen, you're like, oh my God, how did I ever live before I did this? What was I even doing? So that was a really long answer. Like I said, I have a lot to say about that, but that's for sure the things that I would tell you to focus on.
This is gold. And I say this because folks on here have heard me talk about Notion, because that's my content management system. I love it. I was on ClickUp before that. Yeah. And it's funny, I was talking to a friend and she was showing me ClickUp, which is starting to look like Notion a little bit. It's funny how they like all borrow.
They totally do. They totally do.
But I mean, Notion is, oh my goodness, I love Notion just from knowledge management, all the things that you said. And then as far as like automation too, some things that I thought of as you were talking is I have basically emails that are set up. So when I pitch somebody for a podcast, I have a standard template I can work from. When I sent you, for example, okay, what to do for the podcast, it's not like I'm typing that out every time. I click a button that says.
Yes, exactly. And that's what you should do.
Right. Yes. And then once this episode goes live, I'm going to click another button that has the standard template with, hey, your episode is going to go live, and I'll add in some other personal touches, but the meat of that language is there. So just giving people an example of automation, right? Like you shouldn't have to retype and redo the same things over and over. And I even think about Flowdesk in the newsletter. If you first sign up to my newsletter, there are 12 emails that you are already going to get.
Mm-hmm.
But I think sometimes and I've heard this from somebody I was talking to recently, what hangs people up is making the time to learn the systems they're paying for. So if you do have Dubsado or Honeybook or whatever, you either have to like Google, YouTube, take a mini course, really go through all the stuff that they really already have in their like archives. Oh. And people are just like, I don't have time.
There are, and I know I mentioned this, but there are virtual assistants who specialize in CRM setups and workflow setups. So if you are that person, if you're listening and you're like, oh my goodness, I need this in my life, but I have no time to do it, like you were saying, I highly recommend that you find that person. The Dubsado community Facebook group is a great place to go if you use Dubsado.
Mm.
But all of those platforms have their own Facebook groups, so you can find that person in any of them. But find the support around it and make it happen, because the investment that you'll make will save you, like I was saying, days of your life later,
Yeah.
and totally worth it. Totally worth it.
I love it. Okay, so a few wrap up questions. How do you, this is like a nice little flow, right? How do you stay organized? Any tool, software, or techniques you could share with the listeners?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned all of them already, but Dubsado is by far my CRM platform of choice, my client relationship management platform. I recommend it to all of our students, all of the small creative business owners that work with clients of their own. So that one is a big one. Asana is my PM platform of choice. So I don't even know what I would do if Asana didn't exist. My business would cease to exist if I didn't have Asana. And Toggle is another great one for free time tracking. If you are working to out that, like, how long does it take me to reasonably write a blog post, that how long should I expect my VA to take writing that blog post? Toggle's a great tool. Or if you need to track time for your VA or just whatever in your business, you want to know how much time you're dedicating to whatever client project you're doing, Toggle is another one that I use every single day. So those are like my three go-to live by and die by platforms.
All right, you heard it here, folks.
Yeah.
And then, do you have a hobby?
Yes, I do. I, weirdly enough, love to bake bread. So I got into it. It was weird because I got into it like right before everyone else got into it with quarantine.
Yeah.
And it was just very weirdly timed. It was like January of 2020 that I was like, I'm going to bake bread. And my husband was like, okay. And then in February, it was like everybody was doing it, but I've really fallen in love with it. It's something that makes me slow down, because if you know anything about bread baking, it like time is an ingredient, and I'm a person that is like go, 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 go all the time, if you can't tell already. So it is something that I really enjoy, and bread is delicious. And now I'm spoiled and I'll never buy bread again. So
Right. I mean, because it just wouldn't taste the same, right? Like you make it
no.
exactly how you want it. Yeah.
Once you have it at home, you're like, wow, how did I ever live on anything else?
Nice. And then please just tell the listeners, how do they find you? Any social media handles you want to share, website, and how do they sign up for your program?
You can find me at bitebodega.com. So that's bite as in like a megabyte, bodega.com. You can find me on Instagram at bite_bodega, and you can find me on Pinterest. I'm always sharing our blog posts there that I write about with helpful virtual assistant tips all the time. So if anyone is interested in either hiring a virtual assistant or becoming a virtual assistant, there's lots of tips there that you can read through to help get you started. And you can find my free workshop on my website as well that will teach you the 3 steps to getting started and landing clients as a virtual assistant. So that's all of the internet places that I hang out in.
I mean, we didn't even go into it, people, but I think you had something about Pinterest. Like you're like a Pinterest queen, right?
Yeah, that was one of, before I started my online program, that was, and still is, honestly, one of our very specialized services that we focus on for our creative business owners. So we work with people like Jenna Rainey, who is a watercolor artist. We work with Carly Sweet, who is a self-care coach and a advocate for postpartum care for mothers. And we basically share all of the incredible content that they're creating on Pinterest. And if you love numbers, but you also love to create beautiful graphics, it's like a really magical mixture. And that is where my zone of genius is. So I've really aligned there.
Well, Chynna, I am sold, Chynna. Well, I'm sold on getting a VA.
Good.
I feel like I
I'm
could
so happy to hear
become a
that.
VA too, but that is like going down a slippery slope. I have way too many things that I'm already doing. But I feel like I would be, I'm just saying, people, a really good VA because I'm an organization nut and I love everything to be nice and tidy and I love systems.
I mean, you might have to face your calling. I don't
I
know.
mean, I don't know. But thank you very much for coming on to the podcast.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.
Whoa, so we got into a little bit of everything. I hope you found this episode to be super helpful. Everything that she mentioned in this episode, from Dizzato to Honeybook to 17 Hats, you name it, is over in the show notes, nachesnow.com/146. I hope that you found this useful, either to maybe start thinking about actually getting a VA for your business, or if this kind of business excites you, maybe think about becoming a virtual assistant. You never know. And definitely go check out her website, bitebodega.com, which is also in the show notes, because she does have some really good blog articles for organization and also for VAs in particular. So dive right all into that, the content, my friends. All right. Remember, if you want to support the podcast, you can also jump over to my shop, which is dreamsplansideas.com. And I look forward to talking to you guys next time. If you love this episode, please share, share, share. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, please rate me 5 stars. And if you'd like, I'd love for you to write a review. If you're on YouTube, please give me a thumbs up, my friends, and maybe leave a comment. And wherever you're listening, please subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. All right. Have a great, great day or night. Take care. Bye.